She like kryptonite, I'm a super duper. She like kryptonite, I'm like super duper.
Mike and Mike at night.
I'm a super duper.
Our news, our business.
Hey, if you hear nighttime,
And that means you're here at the right time.
most definitely. What do we do here at the Mike and Mike at Night show?
Well, first we love,
And then we support?
and then we protect.
Yes, we do. Appreciate y'all getting in with us tonight. We got a good one for y'all. Don't forget to tag and share this video. Hey, also subscribe so you can get notifications.
And you guys know this is a hot one tonight. Something that we all have to deal with, but we're going to give you some tools and some ways in which you can maneuver your conversation when you may find yourself in an argument or arguing with someone else.
No doubt. We all need that in our lives. Like you said, we all deal with people like this. Some of us on a daily basis, so we need to have the proper tools to be able to deal with this.
And you know, the main thing too is that we want to make sure that when we are talking or discussing things with people that we care about, that we do it in a respectful manner so that it doesn't lead to more severe issues.
What's up, Harold?
What is the
Appreciate you for
Kwame
tapping
Brown?
in.
Okay. But we're going to talk about that too. I guess we can open up talking about Kwame real quick. I don't know how many of you all have had the opportunity to listen to some of the things that have been said on his viral comments surrounding the issues with his NBA career, as well as the contention that he is facing now with Mr. Jackson and Mr. Barnes.
Right, just to name a few others.
And
Stephen A. Smith, Rachel Nichols, Jamil Hill. He has comments for all these people who he feel have been dragging his name through the mud over the past 20 years, quite frankly. So those of you that are not familiar with what's going on, Kwame Brown was a former #1 overall pick by the Charlotte Hornets straight out of high school in 2001. Well, you know, with that #1 overall pick comes high expectations. And for whatever reason, Kwame just couldn't really quite find his footing in the NBA. And I won't say he didn't find his footing, because that man played 12 years in the NBA and made $12 million. And he was the overall pick, but I guess they were expecting him to be a Hall of Famer or something. It didn't work out like that. So what we want to talk about, the reason we bring this up is we talk about on the Mike and Mike at Night show how we don't tear down other black men. So Kwame, after being silent all these years, now mind you, a lot of people never even heard Kwame speak, right? So the fact that he's opening up, they've awakened a sleeping giant, and this man is coming for heads left and right almost on a daily basis, particularly Stephen Jackson and Matt Barnes, right? It seems like every opportunity that they get, they're tearing this man down, calling him a scrub. Same goes for Stephen A. Smith, Rachel Nichols. They just always got jokes, and they always have bad things to say about Kwame. Well, Kwame's sitting back enjoying his life, he's a country boy. He's living a nice southern lifestyle. He's got acres of land. He didn't throw his money away. He's living good. He bought his mama a house. So I don't know how you can call somebody a scrub and continually keep their name in their mouth when they ain't done nothing.
Okay, and more importantly, I would say, Harold, Robert, Serena, thank you for watching today. Vanessa, thank you for joining the show again, as you always do. I want to say that there is something more important that kind of connects the Mike and Mike at Night show to this situation, and that's why I gave the caption that I did. And that is because what Kwame is looking at more so is what my co-host here alluded to, and that was the tearing down of black men and black women in the media. This is something that should no longer be tolerated. We have been ostracized enough by the people outside of our community. We shouldn't have to deal with it when it comes to our own people. The reason why we are so big on the love, support, and protect, because we find that these are three aspects that are missing from our community and the modern day black mindset. We don't look at each other as our brother and our sisters. We look at each other and we try to manipulate and challenge each other to the point to where it's tearing us down. Now, I'm not going to endorse either side because, as we said, we don't tear down black people or black women or black men on this show. So, or however you identify, we don't tear you down. But what I will say is this: is that when we get out here and we act a fool in front of the people that are onlookers and not a part of our community, it shows the lack of cohesiveness.
Most certainly. And sometimes, hey, like we say, we don't tear a black man down, but sometimes some black men need some talking to. And this should not be tolerated in the media. And the reason why it is tolerated is because it's not black media. Because it's coming from the white superiors upstairs who are pushing them to push this narrative. And let me just give you a couple of examples. Now, you guys might not even know who Adam Morrison is. Adam Morrison was
we talked about on the previous show.
He was a Caucasian guy who was drafted number 3 overall by Michael Jordan. He was what you will call a scrub. He had a terrible short NBA career. We don't talk about Chad Wheeler, the white Seattle Seahawk who beat his black girlfriend. But we always want to talk about what a dirtbag Ray Rice is and Carmelo Anthony. We know Carmelo Anthony didn't even have a team for a while because teams let that media narrative that he was washed up and he was garbage and he could no longer compete to the way he used to, and that really had Carmelo without a job. And quite frankly, it's probably the reason why Allen Iverson retired, right? So,
if not a contributing factor,
right.
It could have played a serious part in his decision making to depart from the NBA.
It could have, but the thing about it, when you have negativity spewing out of your mouth about other black men or other black people in general, it really kind of says something about your own self and your own lack of self-awareness. I was going to give an example. Let's take the Candyman. We all know who the Candyman is, right? The monster in the movie, right? Well, the Candyman doesn't harm anybody as long as you keep his name out your mouth, right?
I thought you was talking about Cisco Garcia's dad for a minute. But
I don't know who that is. No, I'm
Candyman in Montbello, man. Come on, you don't know that Candyman?
I just said I'm talking about the guy in the movie,
right.
the black guy. As long as you keep Candyman's name out your mouth, he will not bother you, right?
Right.
And that's just a metaphor of what's going on here. So if they would have just left Kwame alone, instead of tearing down his name, when they didn't nobody pick up the phone and call Kwame, didn't nobody ask Kwame anything. They just went off this media narrative that the white media was trying to push.
Okay. Well, and what we're trying to really get at, what we're really trying to get at is that we need to have a more cohesive community, and we don't do that by tearing each other down. And there are a lot of popular media personalities that get paid to criticize, large in part, black athletes and
successful black men. Let's call it what it is. If you made it all the way to the NBA, NFL, anything like that, then you cannot be considered a bust. And so I don't know how you would put a negative connotation associated with that. Especially, man, this guy ain't even playing no more. He ain't played since 2013, and yet they still got his name all in their mouth. And so this brother, and I think rightfully so, just took the opportunity to defend himself, and rightfully so. So I'm not mad at him about that. And while they're trying to expose him, Charlamagne the God, and Charlamagne the God, DJ Envy, all them. This is a narrative that's been going on
Charlamagne
for a
didn't
while.
necessarily, and I'm gonna put this out there too. Charlamagne didn't necessarily throw him under the bus. Charlamagne said that maybe you guys should leave this man alone, given his background as far as
right, but the context that he used I felt was inappropriate. He talked about how Kwame's dad was in prison and one of his brothers was in prison. Hey man, just because them people do a certain thing, that doesn't mean that that's who I am. So to me that's another example of demonizing a big black man. Your boy, he's 7 foot, that brother. A lot of white people might say he's scary, and that's the narrative that Charlamagne was pushing. So when you talk about me, don't talk about what my brother did. Don't talk about what my sisters them doing. That don't have nothing to do with me.
That brings us to the topic of our show today, because that's my man's opinion that Charlamagne kind of disrespected him by using his familiar background or the background of his brothers and sisters to kind of indicate who he is as a person. And sometimes that can be relevant, and sometimes it may not be relevant. Sometimes who you were raised by and who you were raised with has a heavy impact on who you are as a person, and sometimes it doesn't. However, there are those roots and fruits that may come back to serve you in a negative way. But we bring this up for a reason, and the topic of today's show, let me just spit it out. The topic of today's show, we were discussing how it is we should be arguing and how we can go back and forth with each other in a respectful fashion so that it doesn't turn into something negative, like what we're dealing with in the media with the Kwame Brown situation. But we didn't want to make it so small that we're just dealing with the Kwame Brown situation. We want to bring it home to you all. So we want to bring it home to the people who are at home arguing, i.e. with their spouse, with their mother or father, when they're arguing with their friends, when they're arguing with people at work, co-workers. And we wanted to try to give some tools today on how you can do that and the ability to be able to maneuver a conversation or argument without it coming to blows or blowing up to the point to where now the disrespect is totally lost on both ends. Let me get to this comment by Harold Hines real quick before we get into the rest of today's topic. Destiny, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate the love, support, and protect that you show us. Don't forget to share, tag, and subscribe the video. Read a cliff note about this guy. Tebow finds $900K, $500K more than rookies in a year. But Cap has to hustle t-shirts. Kwame, step up and support there. And, wherever we decide to align our allegiance with what's going on in the media and what black men you decide to do with their influence, I mean, that is also a matter of opinion. So we don't know necessarily if, a lot of people say that Michael Jordan didn't take a prominent role when it came to, things that concern the black community, especially when the kids in Chicago were killing each other over his shoes, that he probably could have said something or been more of an instrumental influence in that situation and didn't do so. However, that is our opinion, and we're going to keep it there. But without any further ado, let's get back into some of the points that we're talking about when it comes to arguing.
Absolutely. And Harold, you're absolutely right about Tim Tebow. It just seems like those opportunities are there for him no matter what. It seems like they will always give him a chance, or they won't give Cap a sniff. So, but getting back into it, when we talk about arguing with people, we're talking about what is the motivation to argue with someone. Now, there's a difference between arguing and having healthy conversation. Let's get that clear. And so what we want to do instead of arguing with people, if possible, is we want to have healthy discussion with them. So the first thing that you really want to ask is, what is their motivation to be arguing in the first place? And that motivation is coming from a place of where they're feeling like their own self-worth, that they're not worthy themselves. They've been probably hurt and probably drugged through the mud, and they have a need to be right all the time. So those are the type of people who love arguing. The main root of the cause, you have to understand, it's not about you. Now, it only becomes about you when you decide which direction that you're going to go with dealing with this argumentative person. Are you going to get down on their level, or are you going to try to have some productive communication with this person so you all can move forward?
Now, the constant need to be right inside of an argument, and with people who love to argue, you will find that this aspect of their nature comes out a lot in conversation. They don't necessarily want to be heard, and I guess that's where my co-host is going with that. There's a division between needing to be heard or needing to be or needing to be understood, and the need to be right. A lot of people go into an argument with the need to be right instead of just wanting to be heard or understood. A lot of us just want to be heard or understood. We want to give our position, and we want that position to be respected. Now, having said that, there is a way in which you can do this that can, introduce disrespect, and there's a way that you can do this that can promote respect. Now, when we talk about disrespect, let me just say this real quick, especially in the black community, because this is a word that we throw around a lot. Disrespect, this person disrespected me. Disrespect, I believe, fundamental disrespect and social disrespect are two different things. When we talk about fundamental disrespect, this is someone, violating your morals, violating your personal beliefs, trying to belittle you, making you feel less of a human being. These are fundamental ways in which you can disrespect someone. So I don't think that the whole disrespect deal is taken. I think it's taken and the term is used a little bit too loosely. If someone is not doing that, they're not belittling you, they're not violating your personal morals or beliefs, they may not be disrespecting you. But when we are arguing or trying to have a conversation with someone, we have to keep fundamental disrespect out of that conversation.
Absolutely. And keep this in mind too, people. Argumentative people really just need validation. They just really want you to validate them. And there's two ways that you can approach that. Now, if you're coming at that from a place of your ego, because I know how, some people can be, you yelling at me, you hollering at me, and you might be showing disrespect to me by calling me out of my name, such and so forth. But if I let my ego get in the way of that, then that's going to make it more difficult for us to move forward. And sometimes you don't even need to be forward. Think about it like this. If you get into an argument with somebody and 2 days later, you don't even realize what you guys were arguing about, or if it's not going to matter in 2 days, whatever you guys were arguing about, then it wasn't even necessary to go there with them. Now, if you come at them at a place of your heart, meaning using your mind instead of your ego, then a lot of time the best thing to do is just listen. When these people are arguing with you, just come at them at a place where you can listen. Let them spew whatever it is that they're spewing, okay? Make points to them that they were arguing about. Like, hey, well, you know what? That's interesting that you said this or you said that. And then what you'll find a lot of the time is that they will be more open to listen to you because you've given them the stage that they so crave, right? So that's a big step. Go ahead and let them get that stage. Now, it's two different things when we're talking about our spouse and our loved ones or people that we may, have to live with. We have to have better communication skills when it comes to those people in our households or even our co-workers or our friends or people that we spend a lot of time with. You have to come with them emotionally intelligent, even if they're not. And that's hard to do sometimes. I understand sometimes you might have to swallow your pride, but what's at stake here? We're going to come to blows over something that won't even matter in 2 days. This person's still not going to feel validated, which is what they seek so much. So a lot of the time you just got to stop, listen with your heart, and most likely that'll tell you the right way to respond because you know these people you're dealing with and they know how to push your buttons.
Well, let's say this, and that was well put.
Thank you.
But I just want to add something in there. What I have learned and I have found to be very effective when arguing or talking with someone or speaking with someone with a sensitive topic on the table is to try and use your eyes instead of your U's. So when I'm speaking to someone, I say I don't feel well, or I don't feel very good when whatever action takes place. I don't understand when whatever situation takes place, as opposed to saying, you know what you always do, or coming at someone and telling them you, and in those accusatory tones, or taking on an accusatory undertones when you're speaking to someone.
Right.
So if you use those I statements and you use your I statements and the me statements and you place it on yourself in the way that you feel and take those yous and accusatory terms.
Turn them yous into I's, because by saying I, you're taking accountability for your own actions. Now, mind you, yeah, and your feelings. it takes two people to be complicit in an argument, right? So, like you said, terms like you, that's automatically one thing that can turn another person to not deal with, to maybe disrespect you in an argument, right? So be very careful of the terms that you use with these people, particularly when we're talking about our loved ones, because we have to see them sooner or later. So you don't want to have unresolved conflict neither, and I understand that too. But sometimes it's easier just to give them what they want. A tool that I find useful when arguing with loved ones, sometimes I'll just say, you know what, you might be right. And I'll just walk away from the whole situation. And that's giving that person time to calm down, right? If it's still an issue to them, then once they calm down, then we can discuss it perhaps later. And Harold says, always agree to disagree, or if you don't understand that point or counterpoint still holds, convictions that drive those opinions. Realize that if you are the polar opposite of my beliefs, I could not find reason for a relationship. Okay, now that might be true, but when we're talking about our mom, our dad, our children, you don't have that option. You're going to have to deal with your kids. You're going to have to deal with your grandparents or whoever it is, or your co-workers. Now, if we're talking about people on the street, then that's a whole nother category and situation. Let me give you a small example, and I was rather proud of myself. So I had an appointment to be somewhere one time, and when I got there, there was a long line. So what I did, I seemingly, and I could see how it could look like this, I seemingly cut in front of the line. Well, there was this guy who said, wait a minute, who the heck do you think you are? What are you doing? You get back to the back of the line like everybody else, blah, 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 blah. But what that guy didn't realize is that I had an appointment. So when they called my name, I went to the back, and when I got done handling my business, I came out, he was standing there with his mouth open. And I could have actually entertained him, but why? I don't know this guy. I don't have to deal with him. And I'm not going to let him put me in a situation where I lose my emotional intelligence and get into a fight with him. Now I'm going to jail for what? Somebody that don't even care about me? Somebody that doesn't love me? No, I'm not going there with that. So also know that, especially when you're dealing with toxic people. Now, if they're having an intelligent conversation with you, like I said, that's not an argument, right? That's healthful debate and dialogue.
Now, having said that, there are some key points that you want to try and follow when it comes to engaging with someone in an argument. And that is, number one, what we want to do first is we want to pause. We want to give some time, even if we're speaking our side or they're speaking their side. We want to pause. We don't want to jump in there right away. We want to allow this person to develop their thought and speak their thoughts out clearly so that you can understand them. And when it comes to debating or arguing, they say seek first to understand, then to be understood. So the onus is on us to first understand what is being said before we comment on whatever it is that person is saying. A lot of times when we're in arguments, what we're doing is we're not listening to the other person, and all we're doing is developing how we're going to respond to that person and organizing our own thoughts instead of listening to that person and allowing them to develop their thoughts and then addressing that, again, using our I language and not using our you language.
Right.
Number two, number two would be using your I rather than you. Number three, not to attack character. We don't want to attack that person's character, because if you've done that or you do that, then you will lose the argument, because now this person does not find you credible anymore, or your position to be credible based solely on how you feel about them on a personal level.
Right.
Number four, what we want to do is we want to listen a little bit more. Number five, don't avoid the situation. So in what my co-host here was saying, sometimes it is good to get a fresher mind, to walk away, to try to address it again. But don't avoid important discussions that need to be had with a person, with a significant other, or even with a coworker or a boss. If that conversation needs to be had, make sure that when you have a level head, you can return to that conversation and you all are able to discuss that. And
Absolutely.
then another piece, and this is big in our community because I've seen this happen a lot. It's not necessarily what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it. That's very important in an argument. There's a way that I can talk to you that will offend you, and there's a way that I can talk to you that will allow you, or at least encourage you to listen to me more.
Tone, body language.
Yes, all of those things are very important when having a discussion with someone, and we want to do that without arguing. We were talking earlier today about the constant need to be right can be seen as a violent act because you're forcing something on someone that they don't necessarily want and may not even understand,
Right.
and you're moving against that person's will.
You know, and we had some past show we did, and you alluded to some that you said, do you want to go home or do you want to be right? You know, and so that kind of alludes to what you're saying when we talk about needing to win the argument. A lot of times that can have actually even deadly consequences. So especially when you're trying to argue or have arguments with people that you don't know, especially.
And the goal of the conversation should not be whether or not that person is right or wrong, or whether or not you're right or wrong, but to be understood. Some people just want to be understood and need to be understood.
Right.
And when we are patient, like I said, when we're pausing, when we're using our eye language, when we're not attacking character, when we're doing these things, then we don't have to necessarily have a winner and loser in that situation.
Right. And one thing that I would encourage too, a lot of the times, a lot of the stuff we talk about, you know, it's like, wow, why didn't I ever think of that before? And sometimes these tools are effective. So a lot of the time when you're at odds with somebody, sometimes it's just okay to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, and I know that it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to do that, and it can be hard. But just know that these people, their issue, now they might be legitimately angry, but their issue was with themselves. It's that they don't know how to deal with their anger. So you can do one or two things. You could start yelling back or talking over the top of them. You could start using derogatory language toward them, and we know that all that leads to nothing. So sometimes I would just say, tell the person that you're into it with, before y'all get into it, just say, hey, let's have a discussion. And when you come at them like that initially, they may have a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here. Because when we go right into arguing, it's obvious that we're arguing and we're not seeing eye to eye. But if we express to them, hey, can we have a discussion? Always use that word. Use discussion over argument. Use the word discussion over fighting. You know what I'm saying? Because the energies you put out and the words that you use, that you throw into the universe, can actually come back and have the exact opposite effect. So use the word discussion. Healthy. Hey, can we have a healthy discussion about what we were talking about yesterday, instead of, hey, well, you did this and you did that. You.
Now, let me throw something else in there as well. And this is something that I have seen take place in a lot of relationships before we get to our next point here. What I see happen in a lot of relationships is what is called, and a lot of relationships or couples counselors talk about this as well, and that's kitchen sinking. You know, a lot of times when we come up with or have these discussions, it is very common for either party to want to bring up things in the past that have occurred that really have nothing to do with the current situation. You know, you always do this. I remember last Christmas, or I remember 2 years ago at your sister's house, or I remember the previous Easter. All of those different types of things are forms and ways in which we can kitchen sink situations and bring in old stuff just to give us a little bit more ammunition or to add some heat to whatever argument that or discussion that we're having at that given time. try to steer away from even from kitchen sinking or addressing issues from the past. Remind the person that this is something that we have already resolved. Let's not revisit it. We have already resolved that issue. Let's not revisit it. Because if we try to solve situations that have already been resolved, then we make those situations not resolved again and try to address it on a level in which we have no ability to, because that's not even whatever it is we're discussing at the given time.
Right. Now, have you ever gotten into an argument and you did the right thing, maybe that person was toxic, and you walked away and you thought to yourself, well, man, if I would have said this, if I'd have just said that, ooh, then I would have shut them all the way down. Why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I think of that? No, that's not using emotional intelligence. What that's going to lead to is, instead of you trying to think about a resolution, well, you're just coming up with more toxicity to try to spew to this person, which obviously is not going to work. So when you walk away, that is probably the best thing, particularly when you're dealing with toxic people. Now, some things we can't sweep under the rug. We can't pretend that this didn't happen, and I understand that it needs to be discussed. And so that's why we say, let's have a discussion. And when you begin like that, it automatically puts the other person at ease.
Yeah, and I would say again, depending on what the situation is and depending on how important that conversation is to have, don't resolve the situation by just merely walking away. Now, if you're walking away to get a level head, if you're walking away because you want to discuss it at a better time, all of these things are good. However, to just walk away and avoid and use avoidance as a tool to make your point, I don't think that is conducive to a good relationship. Neither does that build any type of cohesiveness in the relationship or with the person that you're trying to have the discussion with. And I believe that we want to be able to have a discussion or be able to present our points in a respectful fashion so that we can retain that relationship that we have.
Right. And a lot of the time when you just take that time, what both parties might find is that the stuff that we're arguing about, it ain't about nothing anyway. And that's what having that time and that space will allow you to do. Because if you sit there and engage that person, you might find your own self being angry, and then it just comes to coming from a place of who wants to be right and who's going to accept being right. And let me tell you, the argumentative person doesn't want to be wrong. So they will continue to try to make their point. So if it ain't about nothing, now we're talking about some serious issues that need to be addressed, then it's still okay to walk away and jump back on it later when we're both calm or when that person is calm.
And I want to point this out. You also want to be careful with that as well by saying that, well, that conversation wasn't about nothing anyway. You know what? And I'm going to say this to my men out there. That's the worst thing you can do when arguing with a woman is to tell her that what she was arguing about didn't mean nothing anyway.
No, both of y'all might realize that, because a lot of time when you argue with somebody,
you want to give her the opportunity to realize that.
2 days later, you don't know what y'all were sitting up there arguing about. You listen, I got to argue with somebody about 2 days ago, and actually it was yesterday. And when I think,
did you use all these tools?
I did use a lot of these tools.
All of them.
I did the walk away tool. Listen, and what I found was this: that I can't even recall what we were arguing about. And that person has obviously found some sort of peace just due to the distance. Now, if it was something really serious, now we talk about something having to do with our children or our financial situation or something like that, and definitely if somebody's being abusive, we want to talk about that. We don't want to sweep that up under the rug. But a lot of the time, it's just a matter of people spending too much time together. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes that little space is a good thing. And what you will find is that when you both come to a place where you both have your good mind and you're thinking with your heart and not your ego, a lot of the time, man, hey, if it's something to you, then let's have a discussion about it. But a lot of the time, it's really that person. It's not even you. It's their inability to deal with an adverse situation.
Now, my brother right here, he conducts his discussions / arguments a little different. And of course, we're going to have different ways in which we
because
deal
there's
with
no
things.
one right way.
There isn't. But we need to find out ways in which will work for us. I have found personally that when I am having discussions / arguments with someone, that I need to qualify whatever it is their position is just as much as I want them to qualify mine.
Absolutely.
So I try to avoid, telling someone that, hey, do you remember what we was arguing about yesterday? No, that didn't mean nothing anyway. Well, I mean, it might not mean anything now, but then it was important to them. And sometimes you can win the argument but lose the person. And you don't want to do that.
No, you do not.
You don't want to damage a relationship. And we open the show up with saying that what we're looking to do is to alleviate a situation that can be potentially damaging and have long-lasting effects. And a lot of times when we do things in arguments like attacking character and being fundamentally disrespectful to someone, it can have long-lasting effects that may cause a person to shut off or not even want to communicate with you on those levels.
Absolutely can. And you have to think about this too. Words are like weapons. If you hit me in my eye, I might develop a black eye, but that'll go away in time. So the whole reason why I stress the just walk away sometime is so that I don't give you an opportunity, or if I'm having an issue with my own emotional intelligence, I don't give myself an opportunity to use my words as a sword, because you're going to forget that black eye might go away, but you ain't going to forget that messed up stuff I said to you. So to me, it's just always better to come to a place of calmness. Now, if you have two emotionally intelligent people having a discussion, then yeah, of course, we can get to the bottom of it right now. But if one person is spewing, being disrespectful, calling you outside of your name, not listening to your point, sometimes it's good just to get that space.
And
now,
it is
that's
true.
not going to always work for sure, but that's just one way of dealing with the situation.
And it is true that there are situations in which people can be socially and emotionally delusional. And usually this has to deal with people who are inebriated, or they're high off of something that they don't necessarily understand and can't conceptualize to themselves. I'm going to get to this last comment because it reminds me of that. Adam Spears says he always wins Raider-Bronco arguments. So for him, he's experienced some type of delusional situation in which he feels he's actually winning these arguments. And that's okay, because like he said, sometimes we can just give that person who may be suffering from some type of delusional episode to take that and own that and walk away, and you don't have to continue to engage them when you know that's what they're experiencing.
Adam, I wouldn't be right if I didn't give him pushback on that right there. Now, this is something that we talked about in the green room earlier. Sometimes inquisitive people like us, we get into little arguments. It could be a sports argument. It could be something as simple as China's larger than Russia by total land area, right? Well, we can Google that, and we can get to the bottom of that immediately, right? Just like we can also look up those facts when we talk about a Bronco Raider rivalry. Well, we could say, well, yeah, maybe they've won more games, but we've won more Super Bowls. You might say that y'all won 3, but factually you only won 2 in Oakland and 1 in Los Angeles, whereas all 3 of ours have been in Denver. You could say, well, the Raider quarterbacks are better than Bronco quarterbacks. Well, I can look up some statistics that will say otherwise. So some things can be proven just by doing a little research.
Well, what we don't want to do in certain situations is argue opinion as opposed to fact.
Right. Because opinions are to be considered, right? But facts are facts. So I'm sure that there's a bunch of facts that you can look up that would validate your point, Adam Spears.
Well, and there are probably even more that would not validate his point. However, that's not the topic on today's show. And we're not going to sit here and engage in a discussion about the Raiders and the Broncos, because we understand that one side of that conversation is a bit delusional and the other side has a little bit more clarity.
Okay. And what side is that?
Well, probably the side that isn't inebriated most of the time, which brings us to our next point, which is arguing with people who are drunk.
Right. Hey, we've all done that, I'm sure. And I'm still learning how to deal with that. I'm starting to deal with it with my brain and my heart as opposed to my ego, right? So I think that the best thing or the worst thing that you can do is to carry on a conversation, especially an argument, with somebody who's drunk. And also I'm learning to not take it personal when dealing with drunk people because they're inebriated and they're not who they really are. If you notice a lot of people who like to argue when they're drunk, a lot of the time when you catch them sober, they're nothing like that person who was drunk, right? And you can have discussions with them that don't have to be arguments. So, and I consider those to be toxic people. People that like to argue when they're drunk, I do consider toxic. And that's one situation where I'm learning to just walk away and not engage, disengage.
Well, and that's true. You know, when it comes to people who are inebriated and love to argue or whatever, well, I would say that you would limit your time around people that want to abuse alcohol and then become abusive in and of itself. However, if you know this, then to engage these people will probably would do more harm than it would good. You know, when you have to understand that when you begin to drink alcohol, the part of the brain that is affected first is the hypothalamus or the hypothalamus, which
distinguishes what?
Which is in charge of your memory. So, you know, the first thing to go is your memory, and then I believe after that is the frontal lobe is affected, and I believe it's where some of the, now you guys can check my facts on this, but that is where some of your decision making takes place.
Okay.
So, you know, when your decision making is affected by alcohol, there are certain things that you are going to do that you wouldn't normally do if you weren't drinking.
Or normally say.
Exactly,
right?
i.e. driving a car and engaging in physical fights and things like that.
Right, and just spewing hatred and nonsense out of your mouth, and people who have that issue now, my man just sat up there and said that one of the first things to go is the memory. So a lot of the time when you're arguing with drunken people, they have no recollection the next day of what you guys were even talking about, right? So therefore, why did you spend all that time and all that energy? Why did you give away your energies toward that when they won't even remember? Now, if we get into a situation or an argument and we're both, or a discussion, and we're coming from a place of sobriety and using our good emotional intelligence, then that can be valuable in moving the relationship forward. But people, like my man said, I ain't gonna say cut them people off, but do limit your time with them, especially if you start to notice a pattern of them doing this. And people that do that to me, I have allowed them in the past to get under my skin when there were much more effective tools that I could have used to help that whole situation. But it's better for me to see when you go home and your feelings is hurt and you're mad at this person because they just spewed all this stuff about you. Well, that person, they're fine the next day. You can talk to them and they'll act like nothing even happened at all. You know what I'm saying? So, but meanwhile, my feelings are hurt because of the stuff you said. So don't take it personal when you're dealing with drunk people. Don't take it personal.
Well, and again,
try not to.
Try not to, but it's very difficult. So if you know that there are people that like to argue once they're drinking, why don't you make sure that they're not, if you want or plan on spending any time around them.
And like if you, in particular, when we talk about spouses, siblings, children, grandparents, listen. I know a lot of people that say this. They may get into it with their brother and say, hey man, let's go have a drink and talk about it. Wrong answer. That's the wrong answer. You need to come at them first thing in the morning while over breakfast and coffee. But trying to have a drink to resolve issues, I understand your heart may be in the right place to try to resolve the conflict, but at the end of the day, you're gonna be right back at at square one, and then you could even become that person because you're not above being inebriated either. Alcohol has it affects everybody different, but if you do too much of it, then yeah, you're gonna be coming from a position of non-emotional intelligence, what can allow the thing to escalate even further. So now, so don't not over drinks, guys.
Yeah, try not to engage in it, especially important discussions over
Right.
beers
Absolutely.
or any type of alcoholic beverage.
Any type of alcoholic beverage, and it ain't no particular kind because hey, champagne can get some people and send them over the top. It just depends on that person. Everybody has a different type of tolerance for what they can and cannot handle. And those people who have a hard time handling their stuff, and those people that you can maybe have a sip with, and you guys always have a great time, and there's no issues there. But those people who are toxic when they drink, you definitely want to consider cutting down the time that you spend with them. I'm getting to a place in my life where I'd rather just not deal with it at all. But some of these people I love and I understand.
So
that
you're saying there was a time where you enjoyed dealing with people who were drunk and belligerent?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is this: my tolerance for dealing with those type of people is decreasing, and I want to use some of these tools that we sat up here and discussed today to learn how to deal with these people in my life so that it doesn't escalate to a situation where we're disrespecting each other so bad that there's no turning back. And when I say that, I mean obviously probably like a physical altercation. You might not remember what you were arguing about, but you might remember that. You might not remember why you got that black eye in the morning.
Okay. Well, hey, we had a good time with you guys.
Certainly did. We appreciate you all.
What did Jock say? He said, I'm at peace, so move around. Most definitely. And when you know that you're at peace and you're enjoying your peace, then you don't have to disturb that by dealing with people that want to disturb that.
Right.
I thank you all for joining us today. Some of you guys got in, got out, got back in, got back out. But I know that most of you all will be able to see this video after it's already shut down. Again, if you see us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Go ahead and tag and share the videos. We also have live podcasts on Apple and Anchor. We're on both of those. So check those out. If you just Google Mike and Mike at Night, you can get a lot of our shows. Pretty much all of our shows have been uploaded to Anchor. So you can get a lot of those or even on your Apple podcast. So we appreciate you guys. Appreciate the love, support, and protect that you give us.
Absolutely.
And we will see you on Tuesday.
No, we'll see you
on Wednesday.
Yeah.
On Wednesday. Okay, thanks a lot, you guys. You guys have a good one. This is how we do that there.
Do you want to leave the people with the message or what they need to do?
How you do that again?
You got something in your arm?
If you got
How
something,
you do that again?
if there's something that you need to forgive, go ahead and forgive that somebody. And if there is something that you need to apologize for, go ahead and do that.
Because life is too short. Hey, and we love, support, and protect each other.
Already. My fault, y'all.
Whenever my niggas is young, niggas still dying. I live up, nigga, what? Give a fuck, nigga, what? For that weed, planning like a poppy seed. The shining and the chanting, happy nigga, man, young, please, all you young. In trouble with the murder, me and mama for months and days, tripping on.